Morning, everyone. We are convening the Committee on Labor and Government Operations. It is Tuesday, March 12th, 2024 at 9:37-ish in conference room 309. The Vice Chair will be handling the testimony portion of the agenda. Vice Chair.
All right, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Apologies for the late start today. This is our first hearing after a crossover, so we will be hearing several Senate bills today. Just as a reminder, going over some logistics and housekeeping, we do have floor session today, so we are requesting that testifiers limit their testimony to 2 minutes. If you are on Zoom, just ask that you please keep yourself muted and your video off until you are called to testify. Let's see, what else is important here? Okay, and then also people in the room here, if you do want to stand in your testimony, we ask that you still come up to the microphone to state that for the record so the people following along on YouTube can hear you. Okay, so with that, we will start our hearing today with the first bill, Senate Bill 578 SD3 relating to government. This bill allows, among other things, allows a retirement to be employed without re-enrollment in the ERS or without loss or interruption of benefits provided by the ERS if the retirant is employed as an investigator in a position identified by the Department of the Attorney General or an excluded management position identified by the Department of Agriculture as a shortage or difficult to fill position subject to certain conditions. First up, we have the Department of Agriculture testifying in support.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Dexter Kishida, Deputy at Hawaii Department of Agriculture. The department stands in strong support of this measure. We have some key vacant positions that have been really hard to fill at the leadership level, and having folks that, actually the pandemic did encourage some folks to retire, but they'd love to rejoin, but not lose their retirement medical benefits. So this would help to bring people on board that are ready to go and help serve their community. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Deputy. On Zoom, we have the Department of the Attorney General, also in support. Not. Oh, I'm sorry, in person.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Stella Kam, Deputy Attorney General. The Department of the Attorney General is in strong support of this bill. Apparently, there have been significant difficulties with hiring AG investigators. DHERD apparently has been allowing this designation on a position-by-position basis, but not as a category. So, and it does take a significant amount of time to get that designation. Thank you. I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, please also note that we have comments from the Employees Retirement System. Is there anyone else in the room wishing to testify? Anyone via Zoom? None? Okay, members, questions? Chair?
Yeah, Dexter. Were you guys in the original bill?
I'm sorry?
Were you guys in the original bill?
I believe it was a little more all-inclusive, so yes.
Okay. What other departments are included? Is it just DOA and AG?
And I thought it was law enforcement. Or maybe they made comments to request to be added in.
Okay, and so this isn't necessarily directed at you. This is directed at all of the organizations that are included in this bill. But I do have some fairly significant concerns that this will become a more widespread tool, this double dipping, as we go forward. It seems pretty broad right now, and that I don't know, that doesn't seem right. I mean, I understand that you folks are having difficulty hiring, but what else have you tried?
You know, between hiring fairs, things like Indeed and electronic type postings, as well as social media postings, 2 of our division administrator positions, 4 of our branch manager positions, which would be included in the bill as stated, have either been somewhat of a revolving door or just we haven't had an applicant make it through the pool.
But that doesn't seem to be the same thing, right? I mean, your efforts that you just described are efforts to get more people to apply or to spread the word about the job. What this bill is trying to do is trying to basically raise the salary of these positions to make people more inclined to take them by adding on their retirement benefits to the initial salary, essentially. Right? I mean, that's the appeal.
That is one, but it's the way that we were looking at is maybe the opposite end of the same picture of just there was too much to lose to come back into the system, so that's what prevented us from them making that step.
Are they not able to pause? And again, this is not just directed at you. If someone else wants to come up, that's totally fine. Are they not able to pause their retirement payouts when they come back to work and then resume them after they're done?
I would have to leave that up for somebody more knowledgeable on that part of the system.
Anyone else here know about that? Any other department requesting this bill? Know anything about that?
I'm sorry, I don't know about that. That would be, I think, within the realm of the ERS, and I think they did submit testimony, but I don't know if they have anyone here. I could check on that and get back to you.
ERS did submit testimony. I don't think that they weighed in on that, though. My understanding is that they are able to pause their retirement. I mean, I'm thinking of a legislator here. I'm thinking of Rita. When she came back to the legislature for a 2-year stint, she paused her retirement while she was working here and getting a salary, and then when she retired again, then her pay resumed.
Yeah.
That seems to be the point of this bill, though, right, is to try to allow them to receive additional compensation through their retirement while they're working this job to make this job more appealing in a salary sense. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I think for the investigators, it's difficult because our pool is really from the retired law enforcement officers.
I understand. So
So-
my question is, though, that now that we've established that the whole point of this bill is to simply pay them more, what we're doing is we're paying them more on the backs of retirees, because the money that would be used to increase their salary, instead of coming out of the budget, is coming out of ERS. And that doesn't strike me as the best idea or the most fair use of ERS's funds. But if you could find me a response to my initial question, I'd appreciate it.
I'll do that. Thank you.
My vice chair's computer is broken, which is why I'm stalling a little bit.
Thank you for buying me some time there. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2286, SD2, relating to internships. This bill permits and appropriates monies for the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations to enter into contracts with eligible employers or registered apprenticeship programs in the private sector to provide on-the-job training to eligible interns. Up first, we have the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations in support.
Good morning, Chair Matayoshi, Vice Chair Garrett, and committee members. Jade Butay for DLAR. We support this measure as long as it doesn't affect the priorities in the governor's supplemental budget requests. This measure extends the internship program to the private sector and is modeled on the on-the-job training element of the Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Up next, Department of Education, providing comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Tammy Chun, Deputy Superintendent for the Department of Education. We're standing on our testimony that provides comments. We're in strong support of Section 5 and defer to DLIR on the rest of the bill.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have the Hawaii Farm Bureau in support.
The aisles are pretty narrow for some of us. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bill. The Hawaii Farm Bill will stand on its written testimony in support. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Apologies for the narrow
Yeah,
aisles.
the aisles are too narrow. You can sit right in front of the camera right there if you want, Brian.
That works too. Okay, up next, University of Hawaii.
Good morning, Chair Matayoshi, Vice Chair Garrett, members of the committee. My name is Alan Rosenfeld. I'm the Associate Vice President for Academic Programs and Policy. I'm here on behalf of the Vice President, Debbie Halbert. UH stands on its testimony in support of this measure. We deferred to DLIR regarding the operational features of the bill and would just note that internships are a nationally recognized high-impact practice that correlate to success for students after they graduate. So thank you so much. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Up next, Hawaii Tourism Authority in support.
Aloha, Chair Matayoshi, Vice Chair Garrett, members of the committee, including the most junior member of the committee, Ilihia Johnson for the Hawaii Tourism Authority in support of this measure. This is an important, high-impact tool to grow kama'aina leadership in hospitality, which is Hawaii's largest economic driver. It's important to expose students, young folks, to the variety of opportunities in the industry. We respectfully defer to our colleagues at DLIR for matters of implementation, and we're available for any questions. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next, Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii in support.
Good morning. Eliza Talbot, Vice President of Business Advocacy for the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii. We stand in support of this bill, and we see it as a really important way to mitigate our workforce shortage challenges, as well as it would be really beneficial to especially small and medium-sized businesses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Association in support.
Aloha Kayaka, Chair Matayoshi, Vice Chair Garrett, members of the committee. HLTA stands in strong support of this measure. Workforce development has always been a major priority of the industry. We're facing major labor shortages in the industry, and certainly if we can entice, incentivize our young people to be involved in these internship programs as administered to the Department of Labor, it would be a win-win. Last year, we did a pilot program with the Council of Native Hawaiian Advancement, working with the Department of Education and Industry, where we provided internship programs for high school students throughout the state, and it was very successful. We believe this model would be a perfect mechanism to implement if this bill is passed. Mahalo.
Thank you. Up next, I have a couple of testifiers on Zoom. Up first, the Hawaii Food Industry Association. Not present. In support, the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce. Not present as well. Is there anyone else in the room wishing to testify? Anyone else via Zoom? Seeing none. Members, any questions? Okay, universal support for this bill. We carry on to the next one, Senate Bill 2291, SD2, relating to advisory boards. This bill established...
Sorry, Vice Chair, I do have a question on
okay.
2286.
Not a problem.
Maybe UH or DOE would be best for this. UH. So I was considering adding a requirement here to page 5 that the intern be a Hawaii resident, mostly to target people who would be more likely to stay and continue employment in Hawaii. But I kind of want your thoughts on that, and I'll have DOE's thoughts on that as well.
Certainly, Chair. I'm just thinking on the spot because we haven't talked about that explicitly, but it certainly seems like a prudent recommendation to me. I can't foresee, just speaking offhand, any negative repercussions from that. It seems
Do you think
reasonable.
the demand is there for Hawaii residents only? If we were to do that from the UH level, I know not all UH students are Hawaii residents.
Correct. But the vast majority are, especially at the community colleges. Also at UH West Oahu, the vast majority are as well. And I also don't foresee, but I have to defer to the employers, that there would be any kind of remote internships. I assume these are all in-person internships as well. And the workers' comp is scheduled to expire a couple of months after their graduation, so that seems to preclude them moving back to the mainland and continuing to carry out their duties.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
DOE, any thoughts?
For DOE, our students all live in and their families live in Hawaii, so I'm not sure that the residency
You have
issue.
some military
We do.
students, right, who are not necessarily Hawaii residents. I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm probably going to do it, but I just wondered if you have anything against it. It doesn't sound like it.
I would say we're not against it. I think we would probably prefer having all of our students have the opportunity. But we could live with a focus. We do want our young people to be prepared, and I think some of our military students would like students who have military dependents would like the opportunity to stay in Hawaii as well.
That's fair, but when we're spending state resources to pay these businesses to house these interns, I feel like we should probably be spending on Hawaii residents that intend to stay and become taxpayers here. But your thoughts are appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, members, any questions on SB 2286? Seeing none, okay, we'll move on to the next bill, SB 2291, SD2, relating to advisory boards. This bill establishes advisory boards focused on workforce development for the Agribusiness Development Corporation, Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, and Natural Energy Laboratory of Hawaii Authority. Up first is the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. We stand on our testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Up next, Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, Representative Martinez, Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. You have our written testimony in support. I do want to make a correction in our testimony. Our testimony references the average age of a farmer at 60 years old. It is now 60.7, so we're going to go with 61. We are an aging workforce. With all the support that we're getting from the legislature for policies for agriculture, we need to ensure that we have a vibrant workforce if we are going to grow our agriculture sector. So something that these boards are focusing on or should focus on is workforce development, such as the last bill. We need more farms. I'm sorry, Representative, I didn't see you there. We do need more farmers and ranchers, and workforce development is critical for our industry. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you. Up next, Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, HTDC.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Wayne Inoue, HTDC, and we stand on our support for this bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the Hawaii Farmers Union on Zoom? In support.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Hunter Hevelin here on behalf of Hawaii Farmers Union and our 16 chapters across the state with membership on every island. And we are in strong support of this bill, and the growing workforce needs, as Brian highlighted, are certainly an issue across our sector and across our islands. Towards that end, we would like to be also represented in these advisory committees to ensure that our membership and the perspectives of our producers are also represented in the growing sectors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all that we have scheduled to testify in person. Is there anyone in the room wishing to testify? DBED?
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you. DBED stands in support of this measure. Workforce development is one of our main pillars under our DBED framework. This gives us an option to increase capacity as we align curriculum to career under the cradle to grave model, and we ask for your support and consideration of this bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy. Good. Okay, anyone else in the room wishing to testify? Anyone via Zoom? Okay, members, please note that we also do have written testimony and support from the Agribusiness Development Corporation as well as NELHA, who are impacted by this bill. Members, any questions?
Yeah, Farm Bureau. So, you know I like the Farm Bureau. I mean, I really appreciate you guys, but I can't see the nexus in being added to NELHA or HTDC. I just don't understand. Can you give me an explanation of why you folks should be on their advisory boards?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bill. To be quite frank, when we did request to be added, we did request for ADC only. Okay. The previous committee did add us to the three other boards, or the two other boards, and we didn't comment that we shouldn't be, because if we're talking about HTDC, the value-added component, the manufacturing component, it's something that is a big sector, big part of agriculture. And then NELHA, though they're not necessarily statutory mandated to do, they do a lot of aquaculture, and there is a push to allow aquaculture as part of their mission. So aquaculture is a big portion of agriculture. It's a $90 million sector, and value added using locally grown products is huge. What's going on with the community colleges and ADC in Wahiawa with the new facility there, and our desire to have more value added even in the farm to school programs, which would be approved. So again, those three we think all touch agriculture, ADC definitely, but HTDC as well as NELHA. But again, Chair, to be completely frank, we did request only originally on the ADC board and workforce development.
Okay, I can see there is some nexus, and when I visited Nelha, I did see the aquaculture and things like that. You'd be a pretty large portion of this council, though, if we created it on the other two boards, and I don't necessarily think that ag has the largest nexus to there. I encourage you to keep working with them, but if ADC is really what you want, then I think I'd be more inclined to just stick you guys on there.
Thank you, Chair. That was our original request.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? Senate Bill 2291 SD2. Seeing none, moving on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2351 SD2 relating to workforce development. I'll spare the long description here, but we'll just call this the omnibus bill regarding the Workforce Development Council. Up first, in the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations in opposition.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. We strongly oppose this measure and prefers the House Bill 2199. The State Workforce Development Board in the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act is to serve as an advisory body to the governor. The law isn't designed to have the board serve as a pass-through for federal grant funds. A volunteer private sector-led board should not be responsible for complex federal oversight functions and would expose the state to liability for federal funds. As an advisory council to the governor, how can they perform their function as an honest broker if they have a vested interest in an initiative, a particular outcome or idea? How do we make sure that they provide the governor are presented fairly and doesn't tilt to get a particular outcome? Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Up next, IATSE Local 665. In support.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, and esteemed guest. Tue Scanlon, President of IATSE Local 665 and International Trustee. We stand on our written testimony in support of this measure. I'd also like to point out that the language as it stands, I think, is the strong language that we need for the Workforce Development Council or Workforce Development Board to operate as intended, including the conflict of interest policies, and to coordinate with local boards as well. As long as we're operating in silos, it'll make it very difficult to make a coordinated and significant impact on the workforce development needs of the state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all that we have registered to testify in person. Is there anyone here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2351 SD2? Anyone via Zoom? Okay, thank you. Members, any questions?
I'm going to call a surprise guest, DBED, up. I know you guys didn't submit testimony for this. There is testimony suggesting that we add the Workforce Development Council to DBED. Was it there before? That's before my time.
I would have to look, I have to get back to you on that if it was housed under DBED before. Looking at the structure under DBED, the Workforce Development Council chapter is embedded under Title 13 with several other agencies and programs attached to DBED. And then within the chapter, it outlines where it's specifically attached to, which is DLIR. Workforce development is a critical component for DBED, so if that's the consideration or the thought, we'd be open.
Be okay with them?
We'd be open to that. We'd want to discuss it with our sister department, but in the previous bill that was heard, we are looking for ways to expand capacity without necessarily growing government. So if the resources are there, not duplicating efforts, we'd be open to that discussion and how to build capacity for workforce development for DBED, yes.
Okay, DLIR, where did he go? Any thoughts on adding Workforce Development Council to DBED instead of DLIR?
Well, you guys are the policymakers. If the legislature, decides to change the law, then we'll salute and follow the law.
But do you have any thoughts on whether that would be, whether it's more appropriate in DLIR or DBED?
Well, I think the subject matter expertise won't be there. But, that's, like I said, that's, above my pay grade.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next bill on the agenda, Senate Bill 2503 ST2 relating to equity. This bill requires all places of public accommodation in state building constructions constructed after 12/31/24 to provide universal changing accommodations that are equally accessible regardless of gender. Up first, we have the Hawaii State Council on Developmental Disabilities. In support.
Aloha, Vice Chair, Chair, committee members. My name is Chase Silvert. I'm here for Daintree Bartos with the Hawaii State Council on Developmental Disabilities. We stand on our written testimony and strong support. We just wanted to add that we would defer to DCAB for any substantive amendments or anything like that for the measure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, Department of Accounting and General Services. Are they present? Not seeing them. Provide a testimony in support. Ms. Sugano? Okay, thank you, Ms. Sugano, for standing on your testimony. Again, in support. Okay, on Zoom, Stonewall Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii. In support.
Good morning. Excuse me, pardon me. Michael Galoya Jr. on behalf of the Stonewall Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii. In recognition of today being Equal Pay Day, we encourage you to pass this message, this bill. It will send a large message that we need to make sure equality is at all levels for everybody to have access. So we ask on this day that if you're looking to grow your businesses and you're looking to encourage, you need to have access. And this is one of the things you can do. So we encourage you today to pass this bill in honor of Equal Pay Day. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you. Next, Retail Merchants of Hawaii. In support. Sorry, we had you listed as Zoom here. My apologies.
Sorry. Aloha, I'm Tina Yamaki with Retail Merchants of Hawaii, and we stand on our testimony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Going back to Zoom, individual Terry Heed. Not present. Submitted testimony in support. And that is all we have scheduled to testify in person today, in person or via Zoom. Anyone else in the room wishing to testify today? Yes, please. You just state your name for the record, please.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. My name is Austin Kanashiro. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Installing these universal changing tables in public would allow my people like my sister and my grandma, who unfortunately passed away sometime last year, to have a place to use the restroom rather than having to rush back home or change their clothes in the back of the car. This bill is important because everyone would be able to come to the Capitol or go to state buildings and not having to worry about using the restroom. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Austin. Anyone else in the room wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? I had one for Dags, but I don't believe they're here. Chair?
Does anyone know how much one of these changing tables would cost? Okay, great. Thanks.
We'll follow up with Dags. Okay, members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2536 SD1 relating to procurement preferences and reciprocity. This bill establishes a new accounting services procurement preference for certain Hawaii accounting service businesses. Up first, the State Procurement Office. In opposition?
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, member of the committee, Bonnie Kahakoi, with the State Procurement Office. We stand on our written testimony in opposition. And just remind everyone that accounting services also falls under the professional services. And when the professional services method of procurement is being done, price is not the primary factor. That's a negotiated factor, so the preference would have no relevance at that point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next via Zoom, Acuity LLP.
Hi, my name is Corey Mora. I'm managing partner of Acuity. We have submitted prior written testimony in support of this bill. Basically, we're trying to advance this bill as a public accounting firm here in Hawaii. We're trying to be a destination firm to cultivate business leaders that are grown, raised, and work in Hawaii. And really, our bill is about trying to create jobs and a place to perform a technical service that is in great need. Accountants are needed in every single business and organization. And so, we're finding it increasingly difficult to compete and retain our talent here in Hawaii when we are competing against mainland firms that have a fraction of the cost to operate here in Hawaii. We're boots on the ground. We have a footprint here, and I understand technology can make it very easy to deliver service, but what we are trying to do is allow for students who go to school and major in accounting to be able to come back and live here in Hawaii, earn a living wage, work, and support Hawaii's economy, as opposed to exporting dollars to mainland firms who, hardly set foot here in the state. And so, we just ask that, you consider this bill, and, really it's to help our profession and create more opportunities for, Hawaii kids.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all that we have scheduled to testify in person or via Zoom. Anyone in the room wishing to testify? No one else via Zoom? Okay, members, questions? Sure.
Yeah, SPO. Sorry, I was reading your testimony just now, and I must have missed this last night. You were saying that cost doesn't necessarily matter because there's a list of qualified persons that's created, and then they just pick someone off that list when they need accounting services. Is that more or less what happens?
Okay, so in the professional services method of procurement,
Is that always the method used for accounting services?
not necessarily,
Okay.
but that's the most frequent use of accountants is the professional services method. So in that method, they get a list of vendors, and it's based on qualifications, their resumes, their experience, various other factors. And the selection committee will rank the top 3 in those qualifications, and then they'll negotiate the rate, starting with the number 1 ranked, and then work their way down.
Do they need to negotiate with all 3?
No, they start with number 1 first, and they negotiate that rate. Only if the number 1 rank says they're not interested or they can't come to a negotiated rate, then they'll do number 2, and then number 3, and then so on.
So should this preference instead be to put local companies on the qualified vendor lists at a higher ranking? I mean, can we put a factor in that if they're local, then when calculating the qualification and putting them 1, 2, 3, that they get a couple extra points or something like that?
It's possible. So the agencies would have to make the determination what their qualifications are. And if one of them is Hawaii-based, or if they want someone that is familiar with the Hawaii state laws, accounting laws, and maybe that would weed out some of the vendors that will not participate, like in our current professional services accounting list. We had 7 vendors, 5 of them were local because the other 2 had to drop out because they weren't familiar with Hawaii laws.
Okay. But so what percentage are procured by this professional services procurement?
I would not be able to tell you that. I'm not sure. I know that our office does the accounting price lists on behalf of the state, and we only use professional services for that
Say
one.
it's rare not to go through that procurement method.
I would think so, because that way you're using that method to qualify, you're basing it qualifications first. That's what it is. The other method would most likely would be the RFP method. I can't see anybody doing an IFB because that's the lowest cost, and you don't always want to go with lowest cost when you're looking at an accounting firm.
Okay.
And even in the RFP method, agencies can stipulate in there, must have intimate knowledge of Hawaii state laws, must have a Hawaii business, so that's already available to them.
So tell me how the professional services are ranked. I mean, is it a point system that you use, or is it a yes/no qualification system that you use in order to rank these firms?
The statute actually says in what order these qualifications are. So I don't have them offhand, but it does list, this is what you shall rank them on based on experience, experience and.
But they can't be all, I mean, they must be weighted, right? It's not either do they have
Yeah.
experience or not. It's experience on a range of what, 1 to 10, 1 to 100?
Yeah, agencies can use various methods based on, like the RFP method. They make the determination where their heaviest weight would be. But in the professional services, the heaviest weight will always be whatever's in statute, which is, I believe it's experience is the number one. I don't have that offhand.
Okay, so adding local Hawaii-based portion to it would weight Hawaii accounting firms. Gosh, I really wish we could quantify this, but it doesn't sound like, it sounds like it's kind of subjective. Do you happen to know that, I don't want to put you on the spot, do you happen to know the statute off the top of your head? Where it lists the qualification?
No, I don't know off
criteria?
the top of it. I know that there are
Okay, that's fine.
qualifications. I don't know what ranking the qualifications fall in. I can get back to you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Kubota?
Yes.
Thank you for participating in today's hearing. You mentioned in your testimony that there's a growing concern about the shortage of accountants.
Yes.
And we hear in the committee all the time about workforce challenges in various sectors and critical industries. Can you just educate us on how this came to be? And you make mention here that the University of Hawaii does not graduate as many accountant students. But can you just provide some background?
Well, I mean, just anecdotally, I would say that accounting used to be the primary or number one major in the business school at the University of Hawaii. And now, that's no longer the case. And, partly I would say during the pandemic, there was a steep drop off in enrollment and accounting majors. But coming out of the pandemic, the increase in students enrolled in declaring accounting as a major, it's going up slightly, but not at the pace that is necessary. And right now, we're in a time where many organizations throughout the state are experiencing turnover of very senior accounting professionals within their organization that are taking with them decades of experience. And there's a shortage. Organizations throughout the state are trying to fill those positions. And typically, public accounting firms were one source for, providing that workforce. We're providing the experience to kids. We recruit right out of school. We're providing the training, the development. We're allowing them the opportunity to become an actual certified public accountant. And develop that knowledge working with businesses in Hawaii. And then typically, these professionals that we hire come to a point where they make a personal and professional career choice, whether they leave to move into the private industry, work for a for-profit organization, not-for-profit organization, join the government, or stay and continue to serve, our client base within our organization. But the majority, I would say, leave and become, controllers, CFOs, key operational figures, within the business community. And there are a number of positions that are vacant. Even ask the state of Hawaii within its own Department of Accounting and General Services. They're constantly trying to fill open, vacant positions with qualified, trained, experienced accountants. And there's just a shortage of that supply. I would want to make a comment regarding the previous testimony regarding procurement method, right now, the state's largest contracts for public accounting services, which are audit services, are procured through the RFP method, not the professional services method. So in an RFP competition, price matters. So that's for us the difficulty, where we're having to fight against and compete against firms that are not, boots on the ground with brick and mortar offices dedicated to Hawaii, having to bear the rents and the actual compensation and benefits that we pay. And they're offering to provide the service that we provide at a significant discount to what we can do it. We're trying our best to create a destination for kids that go to school at UH or maybe born and raised here in Hawaii, go away to school. They don't want to come back and work in our, we have a good firm. We provide good service. We provide good training to our people, but it boils down to, how can we send kids away to school, learn how to be independent for 4 years, 5 years, get their master's in accounting, only to come back and not be, have to move back in with mom and dad. We're trying our best to be as highly competitive from a compensation standpoint to enable our people to live and thrive here. But it's increasingly difficult.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kubota, for the background. Members, any other questions? Senate Bill 2536. Yes, Representative Martinez.
I have a question.
Yes, please proceed.
How do we entice students to go to accounting degree? Because because most of the high schools that we have visited, their pathways does not include accounting degrees. They have agriculture, healthcare, mechanics, but I never heard those schools offering pathways for students to go to accounting. So how can we entice them to go to that degree?
Well, I think a lot of it is community outreach by firms like us. We're actively engaged at the college level where we recruit from, but yeah, we are trying to also be engaged and go out to high schools to explain. I think there's a perception of accountants as just number crunchers, but it's much more than that. Within our firm, we try to tout that we are creating professional problem solvers. It's not just about debits and credits, and green shade accounting. Yes, that's a function and element of it, but, training our people to understand business strategy, trying to, way back when I first started in public accounting, the CPA profession was a noble industry. It was a very noble profession. We hold ourselves to a high standard. So it was very desirable for kids going into school, coming out, to try to attain that certification. But I think it's, it's up to firms like us who are rooted here in Hawaii to get out there in the community and really, advocate for our profession. And we need to be able to compensate at a very good rate straight out of school, which we're trying to do.
Representative Martinez, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, no.
You're good? Okay. Representative Capella?
Thank you so much, Chair. Mr. Kubota, I have a question for you regards to, first off, thank you so much for bringing this up. I think that you bring up the crux of a lot of different issues, right, in making sure that we're supporting Hawaii first and supporting our local workforce here, specifically those that try to get these graduate degrees or degrees where they can make a difference in the workforce that you're, and the field that you're in. I think my question is, there seems to be this list. Are you folks as a local business on this list? And how many times have you been, and if you are on the list, how many times have you gotten work through this type of procurement?
So the primary type of service that our firm provides for the state of Hawaii is audit services, so independent audit services. Currently, those contracts are not being procured through the professional services procurement method. So we're not on that list. That list currently is being used to procure accounting, more bookkeeping type services by individual agencies within the state. But the primary service that we provide is audit services, and currently those services are being procured through the RFP method.
Okay, thank you. And then, Chair, if I may ask a follow-up of Ms. Kakui.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Administrator, for being here. In your testimony, one of the things that you mention is that if this were to go into effect, it would drastically or unnecessarily limit the field of competition. Is that, after everything that we've heard today, is that not one of the purposes, right? To be able to limit the fields that we're focusing on Hawaii businesses? Because I think if even the state can't support Hawaii businesses and Hawaii's workforce, and we're going to outsource to another state that may not have a footprint here in Hawaii, but may have the credentials that you folks look for on your list, but aren't supporting our economy, aren't supporting or renting here for their own brick and mortar locations, is that not the point? To support those businesses first before outsourcing, even if it's cheaper? Because if our own state can't support our state, I think we have a problem.
Well, I don't disagree with that. What we don't agree with possibly is that the procurement code is supposed to be fair and equal and give everyone equal opportunity. So if we limit this to just Hawaii, are we getting the best money for the services that we require? That's my only concern. That are we being fair and equal and open competition? And if we do this for accounting, will that then morph into only Hawaii consultants for any other kinds of services or any methods or any of the other professional services? And that might be problematic if we're just trying to look within. I think that would be an absolute game changer if we were just to do that. But I think we also are limiting our resources when we do that. We're not taking advantage of some of the technologies that are available to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your response. I think that it's a matter of opinion, but I think that we certainly are cutting our own people short if we don't try to support them more. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I may get you had asked about the requirements. So the requirements for the professional services in order of the importance shall be experience and professional qualifications relevant to the project. Pardon me?
What's the HRS?
HRS 103D304E. So it's experience, past performance, capacity to do the work. And then the agencies has any other criteria to be determined in writing by the selection committee relevant to the purchasing agency's needs. So there is that abilities to say we want Hawaii, we only want Hawaii vendors or Hawaii businesses.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the discussion. Moving on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2615, relating to county labor standards. We heard a similar bill earlier this session. This bill authorizes the counties to adopt labor standards that include but are not limited to standards for living wages, benefits, and requirements for participation in state-approved apprentice programs, among other things. Up first, we have the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. We stand on our testimony in support.
Okay, thank you. Pacific Resource Partnership, they may have just stepped out in support. The Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters in support.
Chair and members, Nathaniel Kinney for the Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters. We're in support. I think probably best thing to do would highlight what this bill would not do. rather than what it would do. What it would not do is allow counties to establish their own minimum wage. What it would not do is allow counties to enforce duplicative or probably confusing regulations on businesses. What it is meant to do is to stop cheating contractors from coming in and just completely taking away jobs. I think the previous bill and the need to protect local jobs for local people is paramount. And just as, cheaper contractors are coming down here to take away accounting jobs, there's even more unsavory characters in the contracting game who are trying to bring down illegal immigrants to do jobs at completely below, using cash payments and all kinds of unsavory tactics. And that's what this bill is really aimed at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. PRP, we just called on you. Would you like to testify?
Aloha, Chair and committee members. Chris Delaney with Pacific Resource Partnership. I'll just stand on my testimony in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Retail Merchants of Hawaii in opposition.
Aloha and good morning. I'm Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii, and yes, we stand in opposed to this measure. Right now, a lot of our stores are very short-staffed, so the staff is going and flying out to the neighbor islands, and neighbor island staffs are actually coming to Oahu to help out and staff up our stores. If you have different county labor laws, it's going to be very hard, especially for these local businesses, to keep up with them. It was mentioned earlier that it might not include minimum wage, but even if it doesn't, even if it included like paid family leave and other types of benefits, you're going to have, I guess, in-house fighting amongst staff. How come you're getting it just because you live on Maui or Oahu or something like that? And it'll be just harder to retain employees. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Via Zoom, Department of the Attorney General. Oh, sorry, in person.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. The Department of, Michael Moriyama, Deputy Attorney General. The Department of the Attorney General would like to offer comment on SD1. We feel that if the counties are granted the authority to establish labor standards, that it would be helpful if it's made clear that whatever labor standards they might adopt do not conflict with federal and state laws, rules, and regulations. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Via Zoom, Operating Engineers Local 3. In support.
Hi, aloha, Chair, members of the committee, Panamia Tonga for Operating Engineers Local 3. You have a written testimony in support. I just wanted to add on to what has already been testified to in regards to construction and opportunity that this bill would bring to help with our compliance department. I'll give you an example right now. On Maui, we are working with a county council member on a project where we found evidence of misclassification and not paying the correct wage rate by the contractor. And right now we're working with this council member to get things done and try to get things corrected, but there's no teeth. All really we can do is just kind of ask for the departments to send in their information, their certified payroll, they're dragging their feet. And so we feel that this bill would definitely help us to provide some teeth so that county councils can go after these contractors who are stiffing their workers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the room wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2615 SD1? Yes.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Steve Tevis for Hawaii Harbor User Group. I think it was mentioned that the bill was heard on the House side. We're just asking for an exemption for DOT harbors, which I think is in the House version. That's all.
Question? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone else in the room wishing to testify? Anyone else via Zoom? Seeing none. Members' questions?
Steve, the harbor language, I added it to the House version, but in retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have, because the House version changed it to clarify that we're not allowing counties to really set their own labor standards. It's more of an enforcement bill with teeth to make sure that certain contractors are reporting or forced to report certain labor standards, and then enforcement against them if they're not following the laws, given that, is the harbor provision really necessary?
After today's discussion of what Nat said and the Attorney General, long as it's clear that whatever the standards of the county doesn't affect, because the harbors have a lot of federal regulations.
Yeah.
That it doesn't it's not in conflict or inconsistent with those
So if
regulations.
it's just a reporting, if it's just sort of a reporting and punishment bill, which is what the HD 1 was for 1638, I mean, do you still need that harbors language? I feel like it might not be necessary anymore. My mistake for adding it to the House bill.
Long as it's, like I said, long as it's clear that.
It doesn't apply to harbors.
Well, it doesn't apply to harbors and it's not in conflict with any federal or state laws.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Yes, Representative Alcos.
Carpenters. Thank you. I just want to kind of make this clear. So each island could have their own standard payment if they want to, for contractors, if they want to pay $10 more per hour, they can do so, but they would have to, this bill would say that they would have to stay within a standard rate, or how does it work by the union? Say a union guy would get paid $50 an hour.
No,
The other
no,
island-
yeah, I understand what you're saying. No, just to clarify, because this can get kind of confusing, but we've just had experiences with unsavory practices, guys that are coming down from the mainland. This has happened now twice in Kauai. This has happened right in Waikiki, where their large multi-million-dollar jobs have been given to really unsavory characters who then turn around and use illegal immigrants, tell them, by the way, let's go to Hawaii. You get a free trip to Hawaii, you get to work. I'll pay you $30 an hour. They get here, they collect all of the passports from everybody, be like, okay, by the way, you're not getting $30 an hour, you're getting 15. You guys can't leave the premises. And what they're doing is they're using that practice of paying no overtime and cash, and that's how they're winning these large multi-million-dollar jobs. What this bill would allow us to do is, A, force people who are getting these large jobs to disclose what they're paying, whether or not they're licensed, whether or not they're, when you have a job and there's like 50 subcontractors, I think there's an issue. None of those subcontractors, by the way, have a license to do business or a contractor's license. Those are the type of instances that we're trying to avoid. So, and then when we find somebody that has violated federal or state labor laws, that they can't just come back right around after they pay a multi-million-dollar or multi-$100,000 fine, come back and be like, oh, by the way, I'm back in Kauai, I want to get another hotel job. It's like, no. You've already proven to be an unsavory character. You're not trying to follow the law. Therefore, county, maybe you shouldn't issue them a building permit. But when we went to the counties and asked them, hey, maybe you shouldn't be issuing this guy a building permit after he just came back and is doing the exact same thing, they're like, well, we can't because of state law. We're preempted from doing so. So really, it's as the chair of the committee mentioned, it's more of a reporting and disclosure, and then the ability for the counties to retract, deny, or suspend the ability to do business. Like, I think some contractors think, like, I filled out the contractor attestation, I should be allowed to do business, whereas doing business in Hawaii is really something that you earn a right to do rather than you just have the ability to do it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Great.
Okay, members, any other questions? Senate Bill 2615 SD1. Seeing none, we will proceed to the next bill, Senate Bill 3350 SD1, relating to public service. This bill requires appointees for judicial vacancies to file certain disclosures with the State Ethics Commission, and requires the Commission on Salaries to consider the deterrence of bribery and corruption when making its salary recommendations. We don't have anyone scheduled to testify in person. Is there anyone via Zoom? Seeing none, members, please note that we do have please note we do have testimony from the judiciary in opposition and in support from the League of Women Voters of Hawaii. Okay, being that there are no questions to ask of anyone. We'll move on to our final bill for today, Senate Bill 2474, SD2, relating to family leave. This bill requires the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations to establish and administer a family leave insurance program. This is a Kupuna Caucus bill that came over from the Senate. Up first, we have the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations with comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Bill Kunzman, DLIR. The department appreciates the intent of this measure, and if we were provided sufficient resources and direction, we could implement it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, Office of Hawaiian Affairs. In support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, and hopefully a future member of the committee. Good morning. My name is Keopu Relitz. I'm the Director of Advocacy with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. We stand in support of this measure. Just very quickly, we have a strategic plan, Mana'imau Liola, that has 4 strategic directions, one of them being economic stability. And there is sometimes no greater time that a family is most economically unstable or vulnerable than when they need to care for a loved one. And so we stand in support of this. And we also want to mention that one of the things in creating that strategic plan that came clear across community and in our own staff was that one of the largest issues for our community is the ability to access high quality care for keiki and kupuna, and we think this is a nice step forward to ensuring that our community can care for each other and our own families. Mahalo, and here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Up next, the Executive Office on Early Learning in support.
Hi, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, and Yuko Arikawa Cross, Director of the Executive Office on Early Learning. We stand on our written testimony and support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, UPW, United Public Workers. Don't see them present, but they submitted testimony in opposition. So we're going to go through all the in-person testifiers before we go to the Zoom testifiers. Up next, IATSC Local 665 in support.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, and esteemed guest. Tui Scanlon, President, IATSC Local 665, an international trustee. We stand on our written testimony in strong support. With an aging population, it's projected to grow to 22.5% of Hawaii's population will be 65 or older by 2030. We are all well aware of the labor needs, the job openings that are available and are not being filled. To get people to work, it is imperative that we make sure that they have the opportunity to care for their loved ones. If they are available to work but cannot do so and must choose between a loved one and work, I, for one, I can't speak for anyone else, but I, for one, would choose my loved ones every day of the week. But if we were to truly bolster the workforce needs of the state, then we got to make sure that folks can take care of their families. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, AAUW of Hawaii in support.
Can you hear me?
We hear you fine. Please proceed.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of committee. My name is Young Hyovali. I'm the Public Policy Chair for AAUW Hawaii. We are in strong support of this measure. Only thing I will point out in regards to my written testimony is for you to consider outsourcing the work that's required to unburden DLIR. And also I will ask, it was not in my testimony, but I will ask that you look at the 2017 study that was conducted by Hawaii Commission on Status Women on what it will cost to do it here. And that number is on par with what other states have experienced. Do I have 30 seconds more?
20 seconds.
30 seconds?
19 seconds. It's counting down.
30 seconds? I think I'm ready to share this story. I lost my dad 14 months ago. I had the privilege to take care of him for 5 months. Last month of that, he was in Hawaii. So my husband and I were able to provide 24/7. We both are retired. What a privilege. I will not trade those 5 months for anything. And I don't want anyone to have to choose their livelihood and taking care of the loved ones. That's all. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story, and please accept our condolences. Up next, Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks. In support, I think.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you so much for hearing this bill. You know that we have been supporting paid family leave for a very long time. I think the time is now. We think the time is now. We've been doing the research. We've looked at all the other states where it works. We know what works. We're getting the actuarial analysis done. It's good for our families. It's good for our businesses as well. As Ayatsi said, workers are going to take the time off. So this is really a way for employers to find a way to be able to afford to pay for their employees when they have to take this time off. Because the key thing is, with the trust fund that the payroll deductions for this program would go into, employers no longer have to pay their employees when they're on leave because the employees are getting paid from the trust fund. Also, you know that UPW is in opposition. They say that they want employers to have to pay 100% of the payroll deductions. And this bill says that employers could ask employees to pay up to 50%. It doesn't say that employers have to make employees pay half of it. So this is something that unions can collectively bargain. So I really think if we have a robust discussion through these hearings, we can get to the point where we're all in agreement. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Up next, Retail Merchants of Hawaii in opposition.
Aloha and good morning. I'm Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii, and we are in opposition to this measure. You know, employers want to take care of our employees, but there has to be a balance on what we can afford and keep our doors open at the same time. As written, this bill would be the most generous in the entire nation, providing 16 weeks. I believe, California provides 8, New Jersey and New York provides 12, Rhode Island provides 6. And in all of these instances, paid family leave and TDI are both separate, different things. Basically, family leave is you take care of somebody else. Sick leave is you take care of yourself. TDI is you're hurt. We also want to point out that Hawaii is the only state in the entire nation that mandates medical insurance coverage for health care for our employees. So for small businesses, that could run anywhere from $900 to over $1,000 per month per employee. The recent $2 increase in minimum wage closed a lot of our local stores because they just couldn't afford it. And they are already struggling, the ones that are open, to figure out how are they going to pay for the next increase. Now is not the time. A lot of our businesses did have stores on Maui and they burnt down, so they're trying to figure out how are they going to pay for that? How are they keeping their employees over there employed and, still up on their feet working too? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, Aloha Care. In support.
Vice Chair, members of the committee, Nahelani Parsons on behalf of Aloha Care. We stand in strong support of this measure and really appreciate the committee for hearing it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The Hawaii State Association of Counties. 2 hats.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Nahelani Parsons on behalf of Hawaii State Association of Counties, and we stand in strong support of this measure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. I'm Angie Mercado, the Executive Director of the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And on behalf of our 28-member program statewide that provide domestic violence services, we stand in strong support of this measure. Our testimony also included recommended amendments that would include safe leave for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. Our members recognize that paid family leave is important for them to be able to retain their employees. Our field requires that we have staff that have the knowledge base to work with the myriad of issues that survivors are experiencing, but they also see what happens when survivors are experiencing abusive litigation and are being dragged through the courts and don't have enough time to be able to take off from work. So they have to make difficult financial decisions about whether or not they have to leave their job, quit their jobs, risk being fired because they have too many court dates. We have survivors who are experiencing significant medical issues, especially if anybody has been choked, and let's call it what it is, strangulation. A lot of the traumatic brain injury that results from the lack of oxygen results over time and results in long cognitive issues. And so we also would not be the only state that's including safe leave for our survivors of domestic violence in the similar model. There are 6 other states in the nation, and those include Rhode Island, Maine, Colorado, Connecticut, Minnesota, and Oregon. We thank you for listening to us on behalf of survivors for including this amendment.
Okay, thank you. Up next, the Hawaii Worker Center in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of this committee. My name is Sergio Alquibilla. I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Worker Center. Excuse me. We stand in strong support of this measure. If you have young children or if you have aging parents, you already know the benefits of this bill. There's really not much more I can say. It's great to see Representative Capella here, just taking the time to be able to bond with her newborn. On my way up here, one of the security guards stopped me, saw my button and said, "We need paid leave now." And it's a reminder to me of how many people really care for this issue. I went through the testimonies. There's over 200 testimonies, and everyone is saying how much they appreciate this and they appreciate the intent. But of course, they defer to the Department of Labor. And I do want to say a big mahalo to the Department of Labor for willing to have this conversation as to how we can actually implement this program here in Hawaii. Again, my name is Sergio Alquibilla, and I thank you for this time to be able to offer testimony in support of this measure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, the Hawaii Public Health Institute in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Peggy Mearswa with the Hawaii Public Health Institute. We stand in strong support of this measure because we stand in strong support of healthy families, healthy communities, and this really helps to get us there. It helps for people to take care of themselves, their families, bond with new children, initiate breastfeeding, and all of these things are good for the health, our physical health, and also our mental health and well-being, knowing that from having been there myself. So thank you for hearing this bill and letting us discuss it, and I'll be here for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the room wishing to testify before we transition to Zoom? Yes?
Aloha. Laverne Moore speaking on behalf of Osa Tui, President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. The Hawaii State Teachers Association supports this bill. The majority of our workforce in Hawaii cannot afford to take unpaid leave to care for a new child or assist a family member with a serious health condition. As a special education teacher who teaches in a Title I school, a number of my parents are unable to even attend their students' IEP meeting. Why? Because they do not have sick leave. If they don't go to work, they don't get paid, and they need the money. They even have to ask for 15 minutes during the workday so that they can go on the phone and have an IEP meeting with us on the phone. Now, culturally, what happens in many of our families is that when someone is sick and the parents cannot take off, it's the children who take the care. I was surprised to find out that a number of my students will move to another district to take care of a relative. What happens? They don't go to school. Many of my students are lacking the education because they are the caregivers. Legislators, Hawaii needs a family leave insurance program for all workers so that our children do not have to be deprived of an education or gaps in their education like their great parents had to do during the plantation days. We need to assist our families financially by having a paid family leave. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair, I'm from the Department of the Attorney General. It sounds like you might have us on the Zoom list, but just...
We do, but yeah, please proceed. Thanks for being here in person.
Thank you. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, I'm Deputy Attorney General Jack Relf, here to provide some comments on this bill. As more fully set forth in our written testimony, the bill currently provides for two conflicting models of administration of the paid family leave insurance program. First, it establishes a state-administered trust fund model, but then later suggests a private insurance coverage model. And this conflict means that the family leave insurance program may not be able to be effectively administered. As we've suggested in our written testimony, we do recommend the bill be amended to clarify the mechanism of administration of this to avoid those possible issues. We've also set forth some technical issues, and we've offered solutions to those in our written testimony as well. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'd certainly try to answer any questions any of the members may have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room wishing to testify? Yes, please. Just identify yourself, please.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Mai Hall, testifying as a private citizen. You may remember me last year when I spoke up as an invested citizen in support of paid family leave. I shared my story of how I had some medical needs 8 years ago. My mother took FMLA from her work to take care of me and my children while my husband was away in the military. And she took out private loans. I went on government assistance. We were very stressed. We didn't know how. My church helped me pay the rent for 1 month, and it was a very stressful time. Fast forward to recently, I am now at a job. I work at HCAN Speaks, full disclosure. We have paid family leave at HCAN Speaks to be an example for the community. I happened to take paid family leave last year for medical conditions. It was a night and day difference, you guys. The fact that I was able to take leave for my mandatory medical care that kept me alive and was able to return full-time as an employee to do my job made all the difference in the world. I took 0 government benefits last year. I took 0 loans. I was still paid, I kept my job, and I was able to go back to work. Let us not forget about the humanity that this bill would deliver. Looking at the human cost. What does a human life cost? I am in full support of paid family leave because I have seen the difference, and I implore you to do what is right for our community because it is our kuleana to care for each other. Mahalo.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, we will transition to Zoom. Up first, we have the Stonewall Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii.
Good morning again, Michael Glory Jr., Chair of the Stonewall Caucus. As I mentioned earlier, today is Equal Pay Day. I bring this up now because it's only equal pay day for straight, white, cisgender women. If you go fast forward, in August 7th is Equal Pay Day for moms. Why does that matter? We're talking about, they have primarily been, moms have been primarily the family caregivers. They're the ones that take the time off of their jobs to take care of the keiki. But we're seeing that dynamic shift in these days, in these transitioning times, that where both parents take time off of work. So this will help lower that pay gap. This will help close that pay gap. There was this misnomer earlier today that there's a labor shortage here in Hawaii. No, there's not. There's a shortage of people working for poverty wages and unsafe working environments. And unsafe working environments is when you're forced to go to work while worrying about your keiki at home being sick or your kupuna. So this will help take care of our workers at every level, no matter who they are, and honoring our ohana. So we encourage you to pass this bill, to do whatever amendments the AG is asking for to make sure there's no problems with the bill. But this is a need bill today. And what a great day for you to put in your feather in your cap that you help pass this bill on Equal Pay Day. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you. Up next is Leilani Kailiava.
Aloha. Mahalo. I am a mother of 3 sons and a community leader from Hawaii Island. Paid leave is very important to me because I think about when one doctor told my husband and I that my son wasn't going to make it into this world. Soon I was needed on Oahu to be closely monitored before birthing my son, who was hospitalized for another 7 months. I stayed at my newborn's bedside while my husband took time off from work, having to travel back and forth every 2 weeks to bond with our newborn and to give me a break. I exhausted my benefits from my job, needed to quit, and I felt it was important for our family to bond with our son and to also breastfeed him for his development, knowing that he may have challenges in the future, which he has. He's now 8 years old. Paid leave would have helped us. Families should not have to choose between their health, their family, or their income. Strongly consider passing this bill for the sake of our Hawaii, Ohana, and Keiki. Mahalo for this time.
Okay, thank you very much. There's no one else via Zoom signed up to testify. Members, questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Representative Capella.
For Ms. Wu. And I also want to say thank you so much to every single individual who testified on this measure and who has been testifying or who have been testifying on this measure for many years now. I think the issue has been studied to death. And I think it's very obvious what is best for Hawaii's workforce and for Hawaii in general. And I also want to say thank you to the chair for not only hearing these measures year after year at this point, but for being a champion of paid leave as well. My question, Ms. Wu, is can you explain the insurance model of paid family leave? It's disappointing to me to see a handful of unions, not all, but a handful of them start to oppose this measure. At one point in time, with an insurance model, there was this conversation that it would cost employees about $1 a week or 60 cents a week. I would gladly pay $4 a month in order to have access to invaluable care for my family. So maybe if you can explain that a little bit and what that would actually look like to have employees paying into this system as well, and what the benefit I think that could come from that potentially.
Yeah, I do think when you talk about paid family leave, so I work at HCAN Speaks, and Mai told her story, and we are very lucky to have an employer who offers paid family leave. But we were lucky that our small employer was able to afford it, honestly, right? If we had a state program, it would have been a payroll deduction that happens every week, like Social Security or workers' comp. Employers would know about it in advance. It would be a much smaller amount than covering it on their own because the entire state's in the insurance pool. And we all know that when a lot of people are in an insurance pool, the cost goes down for everyone. So this would be like a Social Security or Medicare program, except at the state level. I used to run payroll for another nonprofit. You get the payroll services and you check these boxes for which deductions come out of the employee's payroll. It's actually a lot easier than running something like a temporary disability insurance. Having to buy a private policy. So everybody's payroll deductions go into a state fund, which Department of Labor probably would make the most sense, would be administering. And so then when an employee needs to take their time off, they go to the trust fund. They get paid from the trust fund. That means their employer doesn't have to pay them while they're off. The employer could add a little extra, but they don't have to. So that lets the employer have the extra money while the employee has to take time off. The employer has the money to cover the work that needs to be covered. So that's why this is different from just telling employers you got to cover it. And so, over the years, we've heard, one side say workers have to pay the whole thing, and then on the other side, some worker groups say employers have to pay the whole thing. So we've, looked at other states, and they mostly split it between employers and employees. And it's a small amount, just like any other payroll deduction. We actually have looked at temporary disability insurance here in Hawaii. We use Pro Service, and we're paying 0.43% just for temporary disability insurance. So, if the chair were to roll temporary disability insurance into this paid family leave program, it actually would probably be a wash for employers, or if it's a little bit more, it would be getting so much more because you'd be getting maternity leave. You would be able to care for your parents if they were ill and stuff like that. And as I mentioned in my testimony, the unions who are starting to come in opposition are saying they think employers should have to pay the whole thing. And the way these bills are written, there's a handful of them this session, it said employers could ask their employees to pay up to half, but it doesn't say employers have to. So definitely with unions, they can collectively bargain for the employers to cover the whole cost.
Thank you so much. Chair, one more question. Ms. Wu, please stay there. I want to ask if you can also clarify, I think, the cost of setting up a system like this. I think that's something that comes up again and again, and I think from DLIR, we've heard that a number of times, the cost of potentially what it would be to set up a program like this. We're now hearing it's like tens of millions of dollars, which I don't think that's accurate from some of the different studies that have been done. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we did have studies done in 2017, and then another study was done in 2018 by LRB. Those both show that the costs for administration would be maybe $1 or $2 million per year based on prior states. More states have come in, and U.S. Department of Labor has numbers. They're coming in, and we're looking at them. But the key point about how much it might cost to administer is that the costs would be covered by the payroll deductions. That's how other states do it. So even if the state needed to if the Department of Labor needed to get some money for startup costs, it would be a loan from general revenues. And then once the payroll deductions started to come in, the way the other states do it, they collect the payroll deductions for a year or two before paying out. And so they pay back the startup costs and they pay the admin costs of the state through the payroll deductions. So in the end, it shouldn't cost.
Can you share the estimate of what that might look like? Like a dollar figure, do you have that? Of what other states have done?
Looking at other states, the average is less than 1% of payroll, right? So we're looking at maybe 0.75% of payroll for both the employer and employee side, however you want to split it. So, we're figuring that out right now with the U.S. Department of Labor. They have a model with all the states are in it. I think I actually have some stuff in my email. I just haven't had a chance to really figure out what it means.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions? Chair?
Sorry, I'm not sure if Nicole is the right person. I'll throw this out to whoever wants to answer it. Department of DLIR is saying that it would cost about $15.7 million to get this thing started with 120 staff members. I would not suggest this if we had a surplus of government employees. It's actually the opposite, though. So I'm wondering if we can farm out the administrative work to another state that already has this implemented that might be able to do this better. Washington State has been proposed as one of them. I'm wondering if anyone has any figures of how much it would cost for another state like Washington to take over the administrative portion so that we don't have to hire these 120 employees when we have that many vacancies already, if not more.
Any takers?
Bueller? No? Okay. Well, that is something that I think we're going to consider in the future if it comes to this, because I do think that the estimate that DLIR gave is too high. It's too many people to hire, if that's the correct one. So if anyone does have any comments on it or needs to check their email or wants to get back to me, please email me about that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for DLIR. Just following up regarding the 120 positions. I believe that number might be a little higher than when we heard the companion earlier this session. Could you just break down how you came up with that number and what the positions are within that 120?
Sure. So roughly, this bill is a collection model, and so we roughly base it on what our unemployment insurance division does, as a matter of fact. So I believe you're looking at various kinds of staff sections in order to accomplish that. So that would be things like be employer account registration, contribution and intake processing, cashiering, delinquency collection, monitoring, fund monitoring and compliance, claims intake and adjudication, payment processing and disbursement. Then you would have complaints, hearings, and information technology support. And then in addition to that, to the program staff, there would need to be the fiscal staff in order to be able to do the processing and everything. So that's probably why it's slightly higher than what was in the House bill.
Okay, thank you. And then you testified, in your testimony, you note that there's a $15.7 million cost. That's just for salary and fringe, correct?
That's correct.
Your estimate, okay. And then on the IT piece that you also mentioned as well, too, do you have a sense of how much that might cost?
You know, depending on the design of the program and how it was implemented, we did do kind of a rough estimate based on what the partially based on what the unemployment insurance division is currently going through. And if you include things like the IV&V and the IV&V and also like getting some help in developing the request for proposal, et cetera, we were looking at somewhere around $45 million.
Okay, and just IV&V is independent verification?
And validation, so any kind of state IT project is required to get a third-party vendor in order to help oversee the development and implementation.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions?
Yeah, Bill, I've got a question for you. You said 120 people, but how many people are working for you in the TDI division right now? Do you have anyone in there managing TDI?
So I believe in TDI, we have like 4 staff, and of course, the TDI section, that's a private insurance model, or some of the states and the counties, they have another way of doing it, in short, but, so yeah, it's much smaller.
Okay, so the 4 people, that's too bad. I was hoping some of the staff could transfer over, but since the TDI is a private insurance model and a lot of the administration is taken care of by the private sector, I mean, do you think that that if we did farm out this work, it'd be kind of similar to the TDI system we have now, at least administratively?
If it were a sort of the collection model that's in this Senate bill?
We're changing it to the House version, but yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, if you could navigate all the potential problems where it might conflict with the other laws, and you were to have it be as a private insurance model.
Not as a private insurance. You know what? That's okay. I think I'm okay.
Okay.
So. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you everyone who came to testify today on today's agenda. We will recess for decision making.
Reconvening the Committee on Labor and Government Operations, still March 12th, in Conference Room 309. Members, we have a number of bills on the agenda today. First up, we've got SB 578 SC3 relating to government. We'll be deferring DM decision-making to the Thursday agenda. Thursday, 9:15 in Conference Room 309. Next up, we have SB 2286 ST2 relating to internships. Chair's recommendation is to further defect the date to July 1st, 3000. On page 5, lines 8 through 16, we're going to add a requirement that the intern be a Hawaii resident. Page 8, line 14, we're going to change from department to department, businesses or organizations, or business or organization to which the intern is assigned, just to broaden it, because this is now addresses the public sector as well. I'm sorry, but the private sector as well. We're also going to be amending section 302A-430 to specifically reference the on-the-job training work experience program established in section 394-blank, and technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, any comments? Okay, hearing none. Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Members voting on Senate Bill 2286 SD2. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Capella?
Aye.
Representative Martinez? Representative Sayama is excused. Representative Tam?
Aye.
Representative Alcos?
Aye.
Thank you, members. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next up, we've got SB 2291 SD2. Chair's recommendation is to basically only have the Farm Bureau on ADC, not the other boards, defecting the date to July 1st, 3000. Members, any comments? Okay. Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on Senate Bill 2291 SD2. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Sayama, who will be excused for the duration of today's decision-making. Any members voting with reservations or nay? Seeing none, Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next up, SB 2351 SC2 relating to workforce development. We are going to be deferring decision-making to Thursday, 9:15 agenda in Conference Room 309. I will say for those listening, my inclination is to give the program ID back to Workforce Development Council, but have DLIR's director as sort of a check on them for a lot of the expenditures. We are considering moving them to DBED as well, so that's why we're deferring DM, so we can talk to DLIR and DBED independently to see what is going on. Those are the main chunks of it, but deferring DM for now to Thursday. Next up, SB 2503 ST2 relating to equity. The bill does contain a defective date, but we're going to be further defecting the date to July 1st, 3000 for discussion. I will be noting the costs in the committee report of these modifications, but I think that the bill's language as it stands gives enough flexibility. Members, any comments? Not. Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on Senate Bill 2503 SD2. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting with reservations or nay? Seeing none, Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 2536 SD1 relating to procurement preferences and reciprocity. We are going to be adding a section to make a local accounting firm using the same criteria in the existing section to just add that to HRS 103D-304E as a new subsection 4 in there, and then moving subsection 4 down to 5. Just to give local accounting firms a preference for the qualified consultants list. We're also defecting the date to July 1st, 3000. I am going to note my concerns of the committee report that if we do this for accounting, I'm not exactly sure where we stop, and it may be costing the state more money than we'd like. Members, any comments? Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on SB 2536 SD1. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting with reservations or nay? Seeing none, Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 2615 SD1 relating to county labor standards. There has been a lot of confusion on this bill on what exactly it does. We're going to be changing this bill to the House version of it, HB 1638 HD1, minus the harbor exception, which is not needed, defecting the date to July, well, it's already defected to July 1st, 3000 in the House version. Members, any questions or comments? Vice Chair, for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on SB 2615, SD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting with reservations or nay? Seeing none, Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SB 3350, SD1, relating to public service. Per the judiciary's testimony, we are going to be excluding per diem judges from Part 2's reporting requirement, defecting the date to July 1st, 3000. Technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, any comments? Vice Chair, for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on SB 3350, SD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting with reservations or nay?
I have reservations.
Reservations noted for Representative Alcoates. Anyone else? Seeing none, all remaining members vote aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, last bill on the agenda, SB 2474, ST2, relating to family leave. We are going to be changing this version to the House version, which is HB 2757 HD1. A lot of the testimony issues that were brought up are not issues in the House version. I believe the date is already defected to July 1st, 3000, but if not, we'll be doing that as well. Technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, any comments? Okay. Vice Chair, for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on Senate Bill 2474, SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting with reservations or nay? Seeing none, all members vote aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members.